My flight got canceled at 11 at night, and I called my wife 4 times before she picked up. Vanessa, I said, the second she answered. My flight got scrapped. I'm stuck at the airport until morning, unless somebody comes and gets me. Can you drive out here? There was music behind her, laughing, glasses clinking against the counter. She exhaled like I had walked into a meeting she was chairing. Daniel, I have people over. I know. I'm the one who set up the folding tables before I left for this trip, remember? I need a ride. Call a cab. I did. Surge pricing has it at $200 for a 2-hour drive at midnight. Then take the shuttle in the morning. I looked around the empty terminal, the chairs bolted to the floor, a janitor pushing a mop past a closed coffee stand, like the whole building had already gone to sleep without me. Busy doing what, exactly? I asked. Busy hosting the housewarming for the prices, which you knew about, which I planned around your trip so it wouldn't overlap. Okay, and? 2 words. That was Vanessa's whole personality, distilled down to a shrug you could hear through a phone. And I'm asking you to come get your husband, I said. Daniel, I have 12 people in my living room. They are your friends too. They will be fine without me refilling their wine for 2 hours. You're being dramatic. A woman laughed behind her, and Vanessa lowered her voice, like she was hiding a phone call from a spouse instead of talking to one. You're good at figuring things out, she said. Then she hung up. I stood there holding the phone like it might apologize on her behalf. It didn't. I called back 20 minutes later. No answer. I called again after 40. Straight to voicemail. At some point, I sat down on a bench outside baggage claim and laughed once. Not because anything was funny, but because there are nights in a marriage where the truth stops being polite. It stops knocking. It just walks in wearing muddy boots. If I had known who was about to pull into that arrivals lane, I would have stopped pretending the canceled flight was the only problem I had that night. An hour after my last call, a gray hatchback rolled up to the curb and idled next to me. The passenger window came down. Nora Ellis leaned across the seat. Get in before security makes you move. Nora was one of Vanessa's closest friends, though closest never felt like the right word. The rest of Vanessa's circle treated every conversation like it needed an audience. Nora listened. She asked one question and then actually waited for the answer, which, in Vanessa's world, practically made her a foreign species. I climbed in and shut the door. You didn't have to drive 2 hours for this. Yes, I did, she said, checking her mirror before pulling out. That answer sat somewhere I didn't want to look at yet. How did you even know I was stuck here? I asked. Vanessa mentioned it at the party. She mentioned it? Said you were stranded at the airport, being a little intense about it. And then what? Everybody just went back to the cheese board? Nora's jaw tightened. I got my keys and left. Did she know you were coming? No. So you walked out of her party to drive 2 hours for her husband? Yes. That's not going to go over well. I know, she said, eyes on the road. I did it anyway. We drove mostly in silence after that, the kind that isn't empty so much as full of things neither of us wanted to say out loud yet. My phone lit up once, a text from Vanessa. Did you figure out a ride? No question about whether I was okay. No apology. I typed back 1 word, yes. Then I turned the phone face down in my lap. When we pulled onto my street, the house was still lit up, cars lining both sides of the block. I could hear laughter through the closed front door before we even reached the porch. Nora looked at the windows. You really want to walk into that right now? I live there. Technically, that gives me some rights. That's a strong argument for a man about to ruin a party. I'm full of strong arguments tonight. She almost smiled. And for the first time all night, I noticed how tired she looked, and how that tiredness didn't make her any less put together than everyone still holding a wine glass inside. I opened the front door. Vanessa stood by the kitchen island, holding a glass of white wine, wearing the smile she used when she wanted a room to believe everything about her life was effortless. Oh, she said, you made it. I waited for the rest of that sentence. It never came. You sent Nora, I said. Vanessa glanced past me. She offered. Nora's face went still beside me. I offered after you said you weren't going, Nora said quietly. One of the other women, Priya, raised her eyebrows into her drink. Awkward. I looked at Vanessa. You told me to call a cab, and you did. Apparently figured something out. So what's the problem? The problem is my wife let a friend drive 4 hours round trip instead of doing it herself. Vanessa set her glass down harder than she needed to. Don't make this into a whole production, Daniel. A production? I stood at the airport for 3 hours because you didn't want to leave a party. It's a cab ride, Daniel, not a hostage situation. That was the sentence. Not I'm sorry. Not I should have come. Just a joke dressed up as an excuse, delivered in front of a room full of people drinking my wine. I looked around that living room, at the furniture we picked out together, at the guests eating food I had helped pay for, and something in me stopped negotiating for the first time in years. Good to know, I said, and turned toward the stairs. Where are you going? Vanessa called after me. Out. I just got home and I'm already tired of being here. Nora followed me onto the porch while Vanessa's voice trailed behind us, sharp and annoyed. Nora caught up as I reached my car. You don't have to drive off angry, she said. I'm not angry. I'm something more productive than angry. That sounds worse. It usually is. She looked back toward the house, then at me. Have you eaten anything since your flight got canceled? No. I packed snacks for a work trip that got canceled and then forgot to feed myself once the actual disaster started. There's a 24-hour diner 2 exits from here. A smarter man would have thanked her and driven off alone to cool down. Instead, I said, come with me. To the diner? I'm inviting you to pancakes, not a crime scene. That's not a great idea, she said. It's a practical idea. You drove 2 hours for a man whose own wife wouldn't. I owe you a meal, at minimum. You don't owe me anything. Then let me feed you out of pure guilt. She studied me for a second, like she was deciding whether agreeing made her the reckless one or the responsible one. Just food, she said. Just food. The diner was half full, the fluorescent kind of place that never quite closes and never quite wakes up either. We slid into a booth near the window. At first, we talked about safe things. Her job as a labor and delivery nurse. That explains why you drive like someone's life depends on it, I said. That explains nothing. That's just how you drive when you've seen what happens when people don't. Fair, I said. She asked about my work. I told her I did structural inspections for commercial buildings, which sounded duller than it actually was. I liked problems that had a clear fix. A cracked beam, a failing support, a building that told you exactly what was wrong with it if you looked closely enough. My marriage never told me anything. It just smiled at parties and let me guess. Nora dipped a fry in ketchup. So the housewarming was for new neighbors? Yeah, that's nice of her. It was strategic. Vanessa likes being seen, being generous, more than she likes being generous. Nora looked down at her plate. That sounded harsher than I meant it to sound when you said it. No, she said. It sounded like you've had practice making excuses for her, and you're tired of it. I leaned back. You always this direct? Only when somebody tries to dress up a bad situation as a normal one. I looked at her for a second. Why did you actually come tonight? She wiped her hands on a napkin. I told you. No, I said. You told me the polite version. She glanced toward the counter, then back at me. Vanessa put your call on speaker for a second after she hung up on you. Priya asked if she was going to get you. Vanessa said, he'll figure it out. He always does. The booth seemed to shrink around me. Then she said you sounded intense, Nora said. I asked where you were. She told me the airport, rolled her eyes, said your flight probably wasn't even that bad. I waited maybe 10 minutes, hoping she'd change her mind, Nora said. She didn't, so I grabbed my keys. You walked out of her party to help her husband. Yes. Why risk that? She pressed her lips together, then answered like she'd decided a lie would insult us both. Because you sounded calm on the phone, and calm bothered me. Calm bothered you? People who know somebody's coming for them get to be upset when nobody shows. You sounded like you were trying to make your own needs small enough for her to bother with. I looked away. That one landed somewhere true. I didn't love hearing that, I said. I'm sorry. She said the word like she meant it, not like an exit line. That was the first real spark. Not the dramatic kind people write songs about. Quieter than that. Just 2 adults under diner lighting. One of them finally saying the thing the other person should have said hours earlier. I paid the check. Outside, we stood by my car, avoiding the obvious fact that dinner had stopped feeling like a repayment somewhere around the 2nd cup of coffee. You should get some sleep somewhere, she said. I have a place. My brother's spare room for tonight. Will your pride survive that? Barely. She almost smiled again, then looked down. Daniel, tonight was a lot. I know. I don't want to be part of something messy, she said. You're not. I already might be. There wasn't a clean answer to that, because she wasn't wrong. So I gave her the only honest thing I had. I'm not going home to fight tonight, and I'm not going to make you the reason I leave, if I leave. Her eyes stayed on mine. Good, she said. Good. If you go, go because you mean it, not because of me. That sentence followed me the whole drive to my brother's place. Vanessa and I limped through 2 more weeks before I finally said the word divorce out loud. And once I said it, I didn't take it back. I called a lawyer my coworker had used the year before. I didn't make speeches. I started separating accounts and looking at apartments. Before any of that got messy, I texted Nora. I'm filing for divorce. Wanted you to hear it from me before Vanessa turns it into a story. She replied 10 minutes later. Are you okay? I typed back, yes, can we get coffee? Just to talk. She picked a small shop near her hospital. When I walked in, she was already sitting with 2 cups. Black, right? She said, sliding one over. You remembered. You mentioned it at the diner. Said something about coffee being emotional support for men who can't just say they're tired. That sounds like me trying to be clever and failing. It wasn't a total failure, she said, and it almost turned into a real smile before it faded. You really left, she said. Yeah, where are you staying? My brother's, for now. It's cramped and smells like protein powder. Sounds romantic. I'm calling it transitional. She looked at me over her cup. Did you leave because of what I told you at the diner? I left because it was true. That's not the same as you causing it. No, she agreed. But you confirmed something I already suspected for a long time. Nora nodded slowly. I'm glad you got out. You're allowed to say that? I'm allowed to say a lot of things. I usually don't, because Vanessa doesn't really keep friends. She keeps mirrors. If you reflect the wrong thing back at her, she turns you toward the wall. I almost laughed, but she looked too serious for that. Why were you two even friends? We met years ago through work. She was fun back then. Or maybe I confused confidence for kindness. People do that. Yeah, I said. People do. There was a pause that wasn't awkward at first, and then became aware of itself. I should say something responsible, she said. Please don't strain yourself on my account. I'm serious. So am I. I've had enough irresponsible things dressed up as friendship for 1 year. She gave me a look. This is complicated, Daniel. You're getting divorced. I'm her friend. Were, I said. That won't matter to people. No, I agreed. It won't. What are you asking for? She said finally. To see you again, sometime that isn't built around a crisis. That's a terrible pitch. I'm new at this. At what? At wanting something without turning it into an obligation first. She studied me for a long moment, warmth and warning, both sitting in her expression at once. Dinner, she said. In a few days. Somewhere public. No pretending to each other that this is nothing, even if we keep it quiet from everyone else for now. That's fair, I said. And don't use me to feel better about the divorce. I won't. I mean it. So do I. For the next month, we moved carefully. Dinner some nights, coffee after her shifts on others. Once we spent an hour in a hardware store because I needed a new porch light for the apartment I'd finally found, and she insisted she could spot a bad fixture from across the aisle. That one looks like it belongs outside a motel where people regret their decisions, she said, pointing. What about this one? That one says you own a grill and mention it too often. I do own a grill. Then don't encourage yourself. I laughed more with Nora in a month than I had in the last 2 years of my marriage. It wasn't only easy, though. Easy would have made it feel cheap. Some nights she got quiet at the end of dinner. What? I asked once, standing by her car. I keep wondering if I like this because it feels off limits, she said. That's honest. It's ugly. It's human, I said. Don't dress it up nicer than it is. I'm not. I'm saying we could slow down. Would you, if I asked? Yes, even if you didn't want to. I've survived wanting things I didn't get before. That's not an answer. It is. Just not the flirty one. She almost smiled. I didn't kiss her that night, though I wanted to, and she knew I wanted to. I stepped back instead. Drive safe, I said. She stood there a second. You're irritatingly decent sometimes. Only sometimes? I'm leaving room for disappointment. Smart woman. The first time we actually kissed, it was over a set of measuring cups Vanessa had left in Nora's car months earlier, which Nora finally worked up the nerve to drop off at my new apartment. That was the excuse. We both knew it. She set the bag on my counter. Place looks different without party decorations everywhere. Less festive. More recently divorced man transitional habitat. You need kinder labels for my life. I need better lighting in here, actually. You were right about the porch fixture. She looked around. You're really living here alone? For now? Lonely? Sometimes. Do you miss her? She asked. I answered honestly. I miss what I kept pretending we could still become. I don't miss being useful and invisible at the same time. Her face changed. I'm sorry, she said. You say that a lot. I mean it a lot. She moved toward the door, then stopped. This is the part where one of us acts like an adult, she said. I vote you. You have the better track record. Not helpful. No, she agreed. I stepped closer, slow enough that a single word from her could have stopped it. If this is too soon, tell me, I said. It is too soon, she said, and she reached for my hand anyway. The kiss was careful first, then less careful, but it never stopped being respectful. Afterward, she rested her forehead against my shoulder for 1 second before pulling back. "We need rules," she said. "You kiss a man and then call a policy meeting. Yes, go ahead. No public dates anywhere near her old circle. No pretending this is casual to ourselves. No rushing just because everything else feels chaotic. And if you realize I'm just the person who showed up when she didn't, you tell me before I make a fool of myself. That won't happen. You don't know that." "I know enough," I said. "I'm not drawn to you because you rescued me at an airport. I'm drawn to you because every time I've seen you since, it's gotten harder to lie to myself about anything." She looked away, but she didn't let go of my hand. "That was almost too good," she muttered. "I'll ruin it eventually." "Give me a second," I said, and she laughed, and something in the room eased. We kept things quiet while the divorce finished, not out of shame, more out of wanting it protected from people who fed on other people's collapses. My lawyer told me to keep communication clean. I did. Every time Vanessa sent something sharp, I answered like a man writing for a future file. "You destroyed our marriage," she wrote once. "I left after a pattern of being asked to disappear," I replied. "You sound like a robot," she wrote back. "Practical communication only," I answered, and could almost hear her throwing the phone across a room. I don't know exactly who figured it out first. In a town wrapped tightly around the same social circles, secrets don't stay buried. They put on shoes and go visit everyone personally. Vanessa called first. I let it go to voicemail. Then came the texts. So it was Nora this whole time. Disgusting. "You two deserve each other." I sent one reply. "Please communicate through email regarding the divorce only." 5 minutes later, Nora called, her voice tight. "Have you seen it?" she asked. "Seen what?" "She posted something." I opened the app. There it was. A long post about fake friends, women who smile at your dinner table while planning to take your husband, and men who rewrite their own history to feel better about leaving. She didn't use names. She didn't have to. The comments filled in every blank with the confidence of people who had never asked a single real question. Priya commented 3 heart emojis and, "We always suspected something." Someone I barely knew added, "Stay strong." I read it twice and set the phone down. "Where are you?" I asked Nora. "Home. I'm coming over." "No, Daniel, don't. That will make it worse. It's already worse. People from the hospital follow me. My supervisor's cousin knows Priya. I've gotten messages from women I haven't spoken to in years. Let me come over." "No." Her voice cracked on the word, and it made me sit down where I stood. "I need to think," she said. "About us?" I asked. A pause. Yes. That answer was honest enough to hurt. I drove anyway, not to her apartment, but to a parking lot near the hospital. Because if I showed up after she'd asked me not to, I'd be calling pressure support, and I'd done enough of that kind of renaming already in my old marriage. I texted instead. "I'm nearby. Not coming in unless you ask me to. You're not alone in this." She replied 20 minutes later. "I don't want to be the reason your life gets uglier. You're the reason I stopped accepting ugly as the baseline." I typed back. No response that night. The following days were rough. Nora pulled back, not cold, just careful, in a way that showed exactly how much the rumor was costing her. When I finally saw her again, it was at a small sandwich shop 2 towns over, somewhere no one from either of our lives would recognize us. "You, okay?" I asked. "No," she said. "Thank you for not lying about it." She unwrapped the sandwich and didn't touch it. "My mother called me," she said. "Asked if I really did what people were saying." "What did you tell her?" "That I helped a stranded man and somehow became the villain in a story I never wrote." "Good answer." She started crying, quietly, and it hollowed something out in me. "I can handle people being petty," she said. "I'm not fragile, but I hate that everyone thinks I was sneaking around while you were still married." "We weren't," I said. "I know that. I know you know. But do they care?" "No," she said, pushing the sandwich away. "Maybe we should pause? Is that what you actually want?" "No." "Then why say it?" "Because I don't want to lose my job, my reputation, my mother's respect, and then find out in 6 months you were just clinging to the first person who treated you decently." There it was, finally spoken out loud instead of just feared quietly. I didn't rush an answer, because rushing would have sounded desperate instead of certain. "I can't promise people will be fair," I said. "They won't be. I can't promise this hasn't already cost us something. It has. But I can promise you this. I'm not going to hide behind your silence while she tells the story alone." "What does that mean?" Nora asked. "It means Vanessa doesn't get to be the only voice in the room." "Don't start a public fight," Nora said. "I'm not starting one. That's exactly what she started, when she decided you should pay for her choices. I'm finishing my part of it. I don't want some angry rant online. I don't do rants. I do facts. Facts still burn people. Then people should stop pouring gasoline on their own story and calling it perfume. She stared at me despite herself. That was dramatic. I'm under some stress. It was still a little good. I'll take it, I said. If you do this, people will drag you too, she said. They already can. I'm not special. I'm serious, Daniel. So am I said. I leaned forward. I'm not going to post details about you, but I will not let her use my silence to hurt you. I can say enough without making your life smaller in the process. You'd really take that heat? She said. I should have stood up for myself a long time before this. You were trying to keep things quiet. I was trying to keep things comfortable, I said. There's a difference. Her eyes filled, but she blinked it back. I don't want to be ashamed of loving you, she said quietly. That was the first time either of us said it out loud. Not at the apartment, not under nice lighting, in a sandwich shop with her food untouched, and her name getting kicked around by people who preferred a clean villain to a true story. I reached across the table, palm up. She looked at my hand for a second, then placed hers in it. Then don't be, I said, and I won't be quiet about why. That night, I wrote a post and rewrote it 5 times until it had no insults in it at all, just the sequence of what actually happened. I wrote that I had called my wife from a canceled flight and been told to figure it out myself. I wrote that Nora drove 2 hours after Vanessa refused. I wrote that Nora's first words to me weren't romantic or secretive. They were, "How can I help?" I wrote that I left my marriage because I finally accepted something that had been true for a long time, that care without respect is just labor wearing a nicer name. I wrote that Nora didn't break anything that wasn't already broken long before she ever got involved. I wrote that anyone attacking her was attacking the only person in that whole story who had acted with basic decency. Before posting it, I sent it to Nora. She called 2 minutes later. Too much? She asked. No. Too little? No. What then? I'm scared. I know. Post it anyway. Are you sure? I'm sure. So I did. The reaction wasn't instant justice, because real life rarely hands you that. At first, people argued. Priya tried to twist the timeline. Vanessa posted that I was rewriting everything to look good. Then my brother commented that he'd helped me move into his spare room the night this all started, weeks before Nora and I were ever anything. My neighbor, an older woman named Ruth, who had seen Nora's car pull up that night and had also heard Vanessa yelling through the window, commented too. She said she didn't know the whole marriage, but she knew exactly who showed up and who didn't, and she wasn't shy about saying so. Ruth was blunt and past caring what anyone thought of her opinion, and her one comment did more than my entire post had. People started asking quieter questions after that. Some deleted their comments. A few messaged Nora privately to apologize. Not everyone. Enough. Vanessa called me from a number I didn't recognize. You're trying to ruin me, she said. No, I corrected you. You made our marriage public first, when you turned me into the villain of your story. That seems to happen a lot lately, when facts show up, I said. She went quiet for a second. You think she's gonna stay with you after all this? She likes being the good one. She won't like being hated. She can decide what she likes. She betrayed me, Vanessa said. No, I said. She helped me. She was my friend, she said. Then maybe you should have learned something from how she treats people, Vanessa scoffed. You're so proud of yourself. No, I said. I'm just done explaining basic decency to someone with perfectly good hearing. I ended the call and made a note of it for my lawyer. Nora came by that evening. She had a key by then, for emergencies, the practical kind, and we both pretended that arrangement was less intimate than it actually was. I was washing a pan I'd already washed once, when she set her bag on the counter. People are messaging me, she said. I know. Some are apologizing. Good. Some are just being nosy. Also predictable, I said. My supervisor said he doesn't care about the drama unless it follows me into work. My mother called again. And? I asked. She said she should have asked me what happened before she cried about it. That's good, I said. Nora looked at me and didn't bother hiding how tired she was. You did what you said you'd do. Yes. I didn't know if you would. I know. That wasn't fair to you, I said. It was fair enough, she said, stepping closer. I'm not pausing. Okay. I'm not hiding because she's embarrassed. Okay. And I'm not going to be your soft landing while you figure out who you are, she said. I almost smiled. There she is. I mean it. I know. If we do this, we do it clean, she said. I get a voice. I get time. I get to be more than the woman who showed up with a car and a set of directions. You already are, I said. She pointed at me. Don't get smooth. I'll stay medium rough. That earned a small laugh, real this time. Then she touched my chest with one hand, steady instead of dramatic. "I choose this," she said. "Not because you need saving. Not because I need to prove anything to her. I choose it because when things got ugly, you didn't ask me to carry it by myself." I covered her hand with mine. "And I choose you," I said, "because you showed up once when you didn't have to, and then you kept showing up as exactly who you already were." "That sounded close to a speech," I said. "I can ruin it. You keep saying that." "It's a gift," she said, and kissed me first that time. The divorce finished months later. It wasn't pretty, but it was clean enough. I kept half of what was mine, gave up the house we'd bought together, let Vanessa keep furniture she seemed to care about more than she'd ever cared about the life we built around it. She fought over small things near the end, because small things are easier to argue about than admitting the big thing was already gone. Nora and I found a small house outside the city, with a porch that needed fixing and a kitchen that slowly became ours. Not in one big cinematic moment, just in ordinary ways. Her tea beside my coffee, my boots by the door, which she threatened to trip over and send me the medical bill for, her scrubs on the chair some mornings. My tools finally organized, because she said loving me didn't require accepting chaos in hardware form too. One Saturday, my truck wouldn't start in the driveway. I stood there looking at the hood and started laughing. Nora came out holding 2 mugs. "What?" she asked. "Battery," I said. "You're kidding. I wish I were that creative." She handed me my coffee. "Need help?" she asked. I looked at her a second longer than the question required. "Yeah," I said. "I do." "Good," she said. "Pop the hood." I did, and as she walked past me with the same calm, capable look she'd worn that first night at the airport, I understood something simple. The right person doesn't make you beg to be cared for. She doesn't turn your need into an inconvenience. She shows up, tells you the truth, and expects the same honesty back. Vanessa moved across town a while later. From what I heard, her circle got quieter once people stopped enjoying her version of events. Priya found someone else's collapse to comment on. One of the others sent Nora a single polished apology that sounded like it had been reviewed by a committee. Nora read it, said that was exhausting, and deleted it. We didn't get a perfect ending. We got a real beginning instead. Bills, work schedules, the occasional awkward run-in with someone from the old life, old rumors that limped back into a room every so often and died there from lack of oxygen. But every morning I woke up in a house where care moved in both directions, and every time Nora asked, "How can I help?" I already knew my answer. Stay. Would you have left that marriage the night nobody came to get you from the airport? And do you think Daniel was right to tell the truth publicly, to protect the person who actually showed up for him?